They said last year was their peak, that the Eagles' defense couldn't get better than what we saw in 2024. But what if they're wrong? What if that wasn't the finish, but just the beginning? Because this offseason, something's happening in Philly. A storm is building, and even after one of the most dominant defensive performances we've seen in a Super Bowl, this team looks hungrier, stronger, meaner. So here's the question every fan and every rival needs to ask: what happens when a great defense refuses to be satisfied? Let's talk about something that sounds crazy, but might just be true. The Philadelphia Eagles defense in 2024 was one of the most powerful, complete, and dangerous units the NFL has seen in recent years. They were fast, they were physical, and when the playoffs came around, they were downright terrifying. But here's the thing. I truly believe this defense could be even better in 2025. Yeah, you heard that right. Even better. Let's rewind for a moment and understand just how far this team has come. Go back 2 years to 2022. The Eagles were flying high. They made it all the way to the Super Bowl, and their defense was elite, ranked number 2 in the entire league, and number 1 against the pass. They didn't just stop teams, they suffocated them. And their pass rush, unreal. They recorded 70 sacks that season, the most in franchise history and the third most in NFL history. That's not just good, that's legendary. But then came 2023, and everything fell apart. Key players left in free agency. A new defensive coordinator, Sean Desai, came in, and the scheme was way too soft. The defense looked confused, missed tackles, blown coverages, and when Desai was replaced late in the year by Matt Patricia, things got even worse. By the end of the season, this once great defense had become one of the 5 worst units in the entire NFL. Just 2 years after nearly winning it all, the Eagles' defense was broken. But here's where the story gets good. In 2024, the Eagles made a bold move. They hired Vic Fangio, one of the smartest defensive minds in football, to fix it. They lost some talent, yes, but they also added key players like Zach Bond, Quinion Mitchell, and Nakobe Dean, stepping into a bigger role. And slowly, week by week, this defense transformed. It didn't start perfect. But once they hit their stride after the bye week, they became unstoppable. By playoff time, no offense wanted to face them, and in the Super Bowl, they showed exactly why. Facing Patrick Mahomes, the greatest quarterback of this generation, the Eagles' defense delivered one of the most dominant performances in Super Bowl history. They had 6 sacks, and here's the craziest part: they didn't blitz a single time. They beat the Chiefs with pure power and precision, and it ended in a decisive victory that reminded everyone what Philly football is all about. That defense from 2024, it was special, historic, and it will go down as one of the best in Eagles history. But now, here in 2025, I'm saying they could match it, or maybe even beat it. And yes, I know that sounds bold, especially since the Eagles lost some serious names this offseason. Milton Williams, Josh Sweat, Darius Slay, Isaiah Rodgers, and they even traded away C.J. Gardner-Johnson. That's a lot of talent to replace, and it won't be easy. But even with all those exits, this team is still loaded with star power. They've got talent at every level of the defense, on the line, at linebacker, and in the secondary. And with Vic Fangio calling the shots again, this group is ready to reload, refocus, and come back even scarier. So here's the question for you, Eagles fans. Can this defense be even better in 2025? Do you believe Vic Fangio can overcome the losses and rebuild another top-tier unit? Drop your take in the comments. From 1 to 10, how confident are you in this defense next season? Let's get loud and let the rest of the league know. Philly isn't done, not even close. Last year, they were dominant. This year, they might be unstoppable. The Eagles don't just have stars, they have monsters in the making. And here's the scary part: most of them are just getting started. Jalen Carter is turning into a wrecking machine. Zach Bond is rewriting what it means to be a linebacker in Philly. And Vic Fangio, he's cooking up new ways to unleash this group. If you thought last year was dangerous, 2025 could be a nightmare for every offense in the league. The craziest thing about the Eagles defense heading into 2025, they still haven't reached their ceiling. Let's start with the defensive line, the heart of this defense. And right in the middle of it all is the young star, Jalen Carter. Carter is already a beast, one of the best defensive tackles in the NFL. He's explosive, powerful, and plays with the kind of intensity you just can't teach. And here's the best part. He's only going into his third year. Think about that. He's still learning, still growing, and he's already giving offensive linemen nightmares. But there's one thing missing from his game so far: big sack numbers. Now don't get it twisted. That's not a knock on him. Defensive tackles often don't get high sack totals because they're constantly double-teamed, and their job is more about collapsing the pocket than chasing the QB. We saw it with Fletcher Cox for years in Philly. He was dominant, but his sack totals weren't always eye-popping. Why? Because his role didn't require it, and he still changed games. But then there are the outliers. Guys like Aaron Donald and Chris Jones who find a way to fight through everything and still rack up sacks year after year. And speaking of Donald, this is where it gets real. Aaron Donald himself, the greatest defensive tackle of this generation, recently said, "That guy Jalen Carter, my replacement is here." That's not a fan talking. That's a future Hall of Famer calling Carter the next in line. And you know what? He might be right. Vic Fangio and Jeremiah Trotter Sr. have both said the same thing, that Carter hasn't even scratched the surface of what he can become. He's not done growing. He's not done evolving. The sky is the limit, and Carter's not the only one on the rise. Let's talk about Zach Bond. Last season, Bond delivered what might have been the best year ever for a linebacker in Eagles history. He finished top 5 in Defensive Player of the Year voting, and here's the crazy part: it was his first season in a brand new defense, playing a brand new position. That's like learning a new language and winning a debate competition in it, in your first year. Now imagine what he could do in year 2. With more experience, more confidence, more control. Bond himself said it best: "That was my first real year playing inside linebacker. There's still a lot of room to grow, and it sounds like he's ready for more." In a recent interview, Bond hinted that he's prepared to take on even more responsibility this year. He said, "If Vic wants to give me more responsibility, I can play more at edge." That's huge. It means the Eagles could move him around, using him on the edge in certain situations, mixing up looks and confusing offenses. Will his main job still be as an inside linebacker? Absolutely. That's where he's a force. But if Fangio wants to unleash Bond as a pass rusher on specific plays, to bring extra pressure, disguise coverages, or throw a wrinkle into the game plan, why not? That kind of flexibility is exactly what makes this defense so dangerous. And with players like Carter and Bond still climbing, it's not hard to see why fans and coaches believe this unit could go from great to legendary in 2025. Eagles fans, how high is the ceiling for Jalen Carter? Do you think he'll break into double-digit sacks this year? And what's your take on Zach Bond? Is he the best linebacker we've had in a decade? Drop your answers in the comments. Rate your confidence from 1 to 10 in this defensive core. And tell us, is this the year Philly becomes the most feared defense in football? When you play through a torn muscle in the Super Bowl just to help your team, that's not just toughness. That's obsession. That's heart. That's what dogs are made of. And Nolan Smith, he didn't just survive the pain. He thrived in it. He set records. He made history. And now he's coming back stronger, faster, and more dangerous than ever. This defense is full of rising stars, and every single one of them is hungry for more. Let's talk about a guy that might not be a big name across the league yet, but is about to be. We're talking about Nolan Smith. Last season, Nolan went from being just another young edge rusher to becoming a star in the making. He took a massive step forward in year 2 and showed the world what he can do when he's given more time on the field. This man didn't just play well, he broke the Eagles' franchise record for most sacks in a single postseason. Let that sink in. Not Reggie White, not Fletcher Cox. Nolan Smith holds that record now, and guess what? He's just getting started. With another full offseason to grow, learn, and sharpen his skills, Nolan is set to take an even bigger role in 2025. More snaps, more responsibility, more chaos for opposing quarterbacks. But what really separates him isn't just talent, it's toughness. In the Super Bowl, Nolan played with a torn tricep. Let that hit you for a second. He got hurt during a sack, heard something snap, but kept chasing Patrick Mahomes anyway. He couldn't lift his arm. He could barely move it, but he refused to come out. Either you give me a brace and I go back in, or we're gonna have a legal fight. He told the medical team, that's not normal, that's not average, that's pure heart, that's the kind of guy you build a defense around. And he's not the only one getting better. Let's talk about the rising stars in the secondary. Two second-year standouts who made a name for themselves fast. First, there's Cooper DeJean. Last year, he came in and shocked everyone with his play at slot corner. But this year, he's healthy, he's locked in, and he's got an entire offseason to master Vic Fangio's system. Even more exciting, DeJean's been taking reps at multiple positions, including outside corner and safety, during OTAs and minicamp. That means the Eagles are getting ready to use him all over the field, depending on the game plan. He's versatile, he's smart, and with another year of experience, watch out. And then there's Quinyon Mitchell. Mitchell didn't just look good as a rookie, he looked like a future Pro Bowl corner. Sticky coverage, great instincts, always around the ball. He played like a veteran from day one. And now, with year 2 coming up, he's only going to be more confident, more explosive, and even more dangerous. That's 2 young cornerbacks already playing at a high level, and they're only getting better. But it doesn't stop there. The Eagles also added new firepower through free agency, including 2 more edge rushers who could play a big role right away. Azeez Ojulari, a former standout with the Giants, brings speed, quick hands, and the ability to win one-on-one matchups. Josh Uche, formerly with the Patriots, has shown flashes of brilliance and could thrive in Fangio's creative pass rush packages. Both of these guys are still young, still hungry, and ready for a fresh start in Philly. With these additions, the Eagles now have one of the deepest and most flexible pass rush groups in the NFL. They can rotate, they can adjust, and they can keep the pressure coming all game long. Eagles fans, how fired up are you about this defense? Is Nolan Smith about to break out as a top pass rusher? Can DeJean and Mitchell become the best young corner duo in the league? Drop your thoughts below and tell us, who's your pick to have a monster year in 2025? Let's hear it in the comments and keep this energy going. Philly's not just building a defense, they're building a dynasty. The Eagles aren't just reloading, they're unleashing an army. Imagine this. Proven pass rushers, hungry young stars, and rookies built like tanks, all coming together in one defense. This isn't just a team getting better. It's a storm building in Philly, and when it hits the field, quarterbacks better run. Because the Eagles have the depth, the talent, and the fire to become the most feared defense in football. Again, the Eagles didn't just sit back and enjoy last year's success. They went back to work, adding more firepower on defense, and it shows. Let's start with 2 new veteran pass rushers, Azeez Ojulari and Josh Uche. Both of these guys have already proven they can get to the quarterback. Ojulari had 6 sacks last season, and in past years, he's had 5.5 and 8 sacks, showing he's no stranger to creating pressure. He's quick, physical, and knows how to find the gaps. Josh Uche, in 2022, he exploded for 11.5 sacks, one of the best seasons by any edge rusher that year. Since then, while his sack numbers dipped, his pressure rate stayed elite, meaning he's still getting to the quarterback even if it doesn't always show on the stat sheet. Both Ojulari and Uche have dealt with injuries in the past. That's true, but here's the thing. When they're healthy, they're both legit weapons off the edge. And it's not just talk. Even offensive players from other teams have said these guys are tough to block. Ojulari and Uche, both super fast, super strong. They keep you guessing, one player said. Uche especially. He's so quick off the line. It's hard to stop him. And guess what? They're not the only additions ready to make noise. Let's talk about the rookies, starting with defensive tackle Ty Robinson. At spring practices, Robinson already turned heads with his size, strength, and toughness. Even Jalen Carter said Ty looks like a monster out there. Then there's Andrew Mukuba, a smart, fast safety who's been battling for a starting job this offseason. He can do it all: cover, hit, blitz, and he's already making his case in camp. And don't forget about first-round linebacker Jihad Campbell. Once he's fully healthy, he's expected to be a game changer. Someone who can play both inside linebacker and also rush the passer like a heat-seeking missile. So now, between the veterans and the rookies, this defense is deep and dangerous. But we're not done yet, because some of the young players already on this roster are about to take off. Let's start with Jalix Hunt, who came into the league as a raw project but is now turning into a real threat. He only switched to edge rusher in college after playing safety. And yet, by the end of last season, he was one of Philly's top playoff performers. Now he's expected to be a starter in year 2. And with his athleticism and rapid growth, there's every reason to believe 2025 could be his breakout year. And then there's Moro Ohomo, another young defensive tackle with a big future. He didn't get many snaps last year, but when he did play, he had the second highest pass rush win rate among all DTs in the NFL. Let that sink in. Second best in the league. With a bigger role, he could explode this season. And let's not forget about the cornerback taking over for Darius Slay, Kelly Ringo. Ringo is entering year 3 and looks like he's finally ready to step into the spotlight. Reports from camp say he's been one of the top standouts, locking down receivers, playing with confidence, and showing real leadership on the field. And here's something important. Star CB Jair Alexander was available this offseason, and the Eagles passed. He signed with Baltimore for just $6 million. Why? Because Philly believes in Ringo. They didn't need another corner. They've got their guy, and they trust him to hold it down in 2025. Eagles Nation, this defense is stacked. Who's your favorite new addition? Which young player do you think is going to break out this year? Drop your take in the comments right now. Rate the Eagles defense from 1 to 10 and tell us, is this the most dangerous D in the NFL? We're not just building for now, we're building a defense that could dominate for years. What happens when the most talented young players in football are coached by one of the smartest defensive minds the NFL has ever seen? You don't just get a good defense, you build a legendary one. And in Philly, that's exactly what's happening. Let's keep it real. There's already a lot of young talent on this Eagles defense. But we haven't even talked about one of the biggest names yet. Jordan Davis. This dude has always had insane size and raw power, but now he's in the best shape of his entire career. According to defensive coordinator Vic Fangio, Davis has been steadily improving as a pass rusher since the middle of last season. And the scary part? He's still trending upward. He's stronger, he's quicker, and more than anything, he's ready to prove that he's not just a run stopper. He's coming for the quarterback this year, and quarterbacks better take notice. So now let's zoom out. Think about what we've got here. Nolan Smith coming back with something to prove. Jalix Hunt turning heads after a breakout playoff run. Kelly Ringo stepping into a starting role and owning it. New faces like Ucha, Ojulari, and Ty Robinson ready to contribute. And now Jordan Davis finally becoming the monster we knew he could be. But here's the real reason this defense could go from great to unstoppable. Vic Fangio is still running the show. This is year 2 of Fangio's system, and that matters a lot. Last year, the defense had to learn a completely new playbook, new reads, new responsibilities, new everything. It took time and patience to get it right. But now, these players know the system. They understand the calls. They know exactly what Fangio wants from them. And they're already miles ahead of where they were last summer. We're having high-level conversations in OTAs, one player said. Last year, we were learning the basics. This year, we're planning how to dominate. That's the difference experience makes. That's the edge this team has. And with Fangio, one of the sharpest defensive minds in football, pulling the strings, the possibilities are endless. The communication is better, the trust is stronger, and this defense, it's playing like a unit, not just a bunch of individuals. When you combine talent, hunger, and elite coaching, you don't just compete, you take over, and that's exactly what the Eagles are planning to do in 2025. Now it's your turn, Eagles fans. Do you believe this defense can actually be better than last year? Who's your breakout pick for 2025? How much of an impact will year 2 under Fangio make? Drop your takes in the comments. Let's talk about it. The rest of the league might not be ready, but we are. This defense is coming, and it's coming for everything.